Hello there. Welcome to another segment of Advanced Audit and Assurance class. So this is just the first full lesson that we're having, and I've opted to start with practice management, and I hope you'll be here and we'll complete it together. So before I dive into the lesson itself, as per custom, I prefer giving out some tips, exam tips, and so that as you go on, you'll be able to apply them, and they obviously save you better for your exam. Remember, advanced audit is about the principles. There's very less book knowledge application. There's a lot of principle that you need to apply. So a number of exam techniques will really increase your chances of passing this exam. So the first one is around the audit procedures. Every procedure must state the assertion tested, the audit procedure, and the reason for the procedure. If you're talking about existence of an asset, you should state, if you're giving a procedure around existence, state that I will inspect, which is an audit procedure. You will inspect the asset, which is the evidence itself, to confirm its existence. All right? There should be a reason, because if you an asset can be registered in the asset register or included in the financial statements, yet it does not even exist. All right. So further on, you can even try to supplement that by confirming its rights, the rights and obligations. All right. The next tip: you are a senior member of the team. Mind the flow of your answer. You cannot just be all over trying to explain something. You can't just be all over. This is a professional exam. This is a master's level exam. You cannot be writing as if we are writing an F8 course. Or even F8 is a professional course. But I mean, at this level, this is an advisory level. It should be worth writing. You're talking about being a director, you're talking about being an audit senior, you're talking about being someone very, very senior in an organization. Next, know how to respond to the basics. You cannot just start answering because you've seen business risks and then you're saying, okay, let me write the business risks. Describe means describe. Evaluate, critically evaluate, discuss. These are different, they have different meanings, and meaning you have to address them as they are. Don't just dive into the audit terminology that you are seeing there. All right. At this level, thirdly, you can't afford not to know how to write a memo, a report, or briefing notes. After you finish this video, you should go on, continue on YouTube, and try to Google or try to search for how to write a memo, how to write a report. That is if you do not know. It will just take 5 minutes and you'll be home and dry. But those are free marks. Just writing. At this stage, you can't be asking questions like, do I need to sign on a report? Or does it have a to and from? That is not supposed to be a question for the stage. So those are exam tips, and they are very, very easy marks that you should get. As you are entering the exam, you should have 4 marks bagged already by you addressing the question by as a memo, a report, or briefing notes, and the flow of your answer. Even if it's not making so much sense, but at least just the flow can earn you some marks. The description and evaluation gives you a whole lot of marks, because that's what guides you in how you're answering the question. Let's dive into our session today, practice management. Practice management is the second part of our syllabus, and I love calling it business management, because you're basically managing a practice, an audit. All right, so it's going to talk about areas related to quality and the practice itself. Those are the things we'll be looking at. So we're talking about how we run the firm. And so pay particular attention. I had to start with this one because it's the base for the ethics. It's the base for most of the work that we're doing. Everything comes from here. So if you encounter an issue with familiarity, probably one of your mates work is a very senior person or a finance director in a potential audit client, what do? You can't just dive into saying, I will use different teams. What if your firm is very small? Take note, our exam questions are designed in such a way that answers are limited. You cannot just pick the whole book and lump it on the answer sheet. It has to be relevant to the scenario that you're addressing. So practice management is the best for the work that we'll be doing on the individual assignment and from the point of the audit firm on how we allocate staff, all right? So there we go. So we'll start with quality control. So we'll be looking at quality control. Remember, there's no proper definition of quality, but there's just some guidance around the standards that I'll provide on what quality is. So there's some guidance on how quality can be achieved. Though whatever guidance has been given by the standards, you can still go over and above it in your firm, depending on the nature of whatever you've encountered. So even as we are giving advice, we should be able to think outside the confines of the standards so that we can address the issue. Remember, when there's litigation, you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that what you did was actually a quality job. They will not just ask you if you followed the standard. They will want to know if what you did was actually worth the risk that you had assessed or worth whatever you had made. So for the sake of our exam, so we're looking at those two standards, international standards and quality control. Then ISA 220, which is quality control. This basically say capacity is everything, right? And so looking at the contents of quality control on what we'll be looking at apparently in this video, we'll be looking at the oversight structure, like how is the practice supposed to be managed to achieve quality, all right? How is it supposed to be directed, supervised? How is the review supposed to happen? We'll also look at the skills and the experience of the team and how training should be done. I will not go into full detail in all these things. I'm going to basically give a concept. Otherwise, then we needed to have a 2-hour session where I'm just explaining. My role at this point is to give insight and guidance. Most of these things, I'll be explaining them as we look at individual questions. So as we pick a question on quality control, I'll then give guidance, further guidance on how we apply the specific elements to those questions. The third one is correct allocation of resources. We'll come and look at how resources are allocated correctly. Code reviews and HOT reviews, and planned and documented. These things planned and documented. Now, I will start by talking about planned and documented. All right, let's just go to consultation and consultation, direction, and review. Just a thought around it. So, in the organization, consultation should be part of our internal culture and deliberate guidance. So it should be deliberate that an organization, or rather the firm, should have a deliberate culture of quality. For example, everything should be done right first time. Procrastination should not be part of it, and this should be led by the senior-most members. That is why quality is a role, firstly, of the highest partner in the organization, who's the managing partner. So the partner should be actually in charge of this. If they can't be in charge of it, this is given to another senior, very experienced person, very qualified and very competent person who is an engagement partner in the firm to be in charge of quality control, so that every person can observe what they're doing, and they should be the one to actually lead the team in terms of this, in terms of how things should be planned, in terms of adhering to the process of internal quality controls. All right. Audit planning is an important means of providing direction to audit staff. Yes, this should be self-explanatory. So when we plan, everybody should be able to know that that is the direction we're taking. So on the assignment, if you've planned that we're going to spend 50 hours on one assignment in this area, and probably just 2 hours in the other side. That is direction. Everybody then knows the direction that the audit is approaching. Then there should be a systematic aspect of review besides the hot and cold review. The hot review, which is a review done just before the audit report is signed, and the cold one is after the audit report is signed. So there should be one that is very systematic and similar to supervision, where there should be ways in which people come once in a while to come and check. Okay, systematically, as the audit is going on, somebody should be coming to check how the work is moving. And this is a role of the engagement partner in charge of the audit. Okay, not the same as the engagement partner in charge of quality at the firm level, but this is a different one, in charge of quality at the audit engagement level. So this person should be able to come and ensure that quality is adhered to, so they can systematically check. And then at firm level, selected engagements that have already been done can be reviewed after some time. So there can be people who would be reviewing these. They can pick 5 or 6 engagements that have already been done, and then they review. If they find any things that need attention, they'll either reprimand the person who probably was at fault, maybe recommend retraining or training, maybe recommend retraining, and then recommend recommend corrective action. Okay, so sometimes it's discipline. Now, documentation, I talked about documentation, that I would have loved to start with that. These things should be documented and communicated. I will even share it later on. These things should be documented, and as they are documented, they should be given to people. Do not reprimand them or try to check these controls when you think they are already breached. Okay, then if it's not a person who's at fault, maybe the system of quality control itself is flawed. So after the reviews, that's when you either also adjust the system of quality control. So there's adjusting the system of quality control, reprimanding the person, or maybe recommending retraining, or just recommending training for that person because maybe they were not just trained in it. All right. Rules of the organization. These should be communicated to everyone, not only when they lack in an area. They should be documented properly and given to everyone. People at the top should be very conversant, especially with quality control procedures. Everything done in an organization is focused on quality control, because in a firm, quality is everything. The quality of work is what guarantees the future of the audit firm. Just in case there's litigation, we will not go down. Remember, Arthur Anderson was a culprit, and quality was not fully adhered to in that organization. So what are the procedures before and after accepting an engagement? This should be shared. And this is book knowledge. This is very much book knowledge, whether you have to ensure that you communicate with the current auditors, whether you want to know why they're leaving, why are they leaving, what is the fee, have they been properly released, or things like that. So those are things that are very much just book knowledge. And then contents of the engagement letter. The engagement letter is not standardized, so the organization should be able to state the contents of the engagement letter, how this should be done, so how the fee should be discussed, or who discusses the fee, at what they can be able to take. So those rules should be communicated. Is your team adequate? These rules should be communicated, especially with regards to human resource, which I'll talk about in the next slide. So can you handle the client? Have you done enough KYC? And how do you go about your KYC? How do we get to know a client? It's easy to just say, know your client procedures. What are know your client procedures? And so with these things, we should be able to pick them out. Reason we are talking about picking them out at this stage is because our questions come as someone asking us to give them advice. Most of the times we are giving advice to an audit junior in relation to practice management, because the person probably will be telling us that they have encountered something like this. And so maybe they've encountered a person offering them something, or they've noticed that our organization has auditors mingling with the client. So we should be able to give that audit junior advice on how they can go about it, or how our organization should be able to respond. So it is not in the nitty-gritty of procedures. It is actually in the advisory nature of whatever we are handling at that particular point. Okay. Next, so human resource. Are you adequately staffed to meet the needs of the engagements that you have or are planning on having? So, as a firm, do we have enough people so that we can even tender? And on an individual assignment that we have, do we have enough people? Do we have enough engagement partners? Do we have enough trainees? If we want to take up 2 competing organizations, do we have enough trainees, or do we have enough engagement partners to use so that we can create Chinese walls? Is it possible? Okay, if we're trying to go into the mines and bid or tender, do we have specialists who can assist us in that road? Do we have specialists who are good at ICT if we are going into to audit a company that is internet-based or has 80% of automated processes, all right? Are these people competent? All right, competence comes in a number of ways. It comes through education, it comes through experience, and it comes through secondment. So, or working on assignments. So, professional education and development. Are these people competent? All right. So, please, even just a person saying they just have, if a question just says our audit, we have a new auditor, and or you are an auditor with having being engaged in a first assignment. If this is your first assignment, you should be able to consider that probably you are not very, very competent with the job. Because yes, education and development, yes. Work experience and coaching, very important. Assignment of personnel to engagements, very, very important. So another area is correct allocation of resources, where we have to identify. All right, so this resource identifies where we take resource. If we only have 20 people and 5 are experts, we can't allocate all the 5 onto one assignment. We have to balance up the teams, all right? So we have to correctly allocate these resources, and we should be thinking about that as we are giving the answers. Simply because an answer is written in the textbook doesn't mean it's adequate or appropriate for a particular scenario. So look at the issues around practice management. So other aspects that we look at are advertising, publicity, and additional professional work. In this one, this is a very, very interesting aspect, all right? When we're advertising, what are we saying? What is the guidance around advertising? Remember, it's practice management. We are managing our practice. This is a business. You've stopped wherever you were working. You are running your own practice, and then you find rules. What are the rules around advertising when you're running an audit firm? Okay, we keep believing that you make so much money when you're an auditor. But how do you advertise your services? All right, so those rules are supposed to be there. All right, so do not make unsubstantiated claims. Do not talk about you being the best in the business, okay? Do not bring the accounting profession into ridicule or disrepute by bringing down or talking ill about other accountants, all right? Publicity matters. Of how you obtain professional work also matters. What kind of language are you using? Are you very, very clear with the clients? Are you very, very clear with what you're saying, right? Around obtaining professional work, there's a very, very interesting aspect, fees, because sometimes because we cannot, as accountants, compete on experience, or not necessarily experience on, we can't compete on the quality of work, because it's believed we do the same work. You can't go around boasting that the kind of work I do is a high level work. You cannot go around talking about that. So most have resorted to using fees as a point of discussion. So they will talk about fees. And those fees that they talk about, they will be saying, I'll charge you lower fees than what you're offered. That is called lowballing, but it's okay. It's allowed, but quality should not be compromised, meaning you can put up safeguards to ask someone to review your work most of the times. Quality should not be compromised, and make sure you keep track of the work that people are doing, or ensure that the people who are on that assignment understand clearly what is at stake. Tell them to do the work very, very clearly. Okay, so that is around the fees. Fees, we're also talking about contingent fees. These are not allowed because of litigation issues and issues of self-interest. You know, contingent fees are not allowed. They're not advisable. So we'll have to do that. Tendering is another issue. So how do you tender as you are running a business? Look, this is the advertising side of the business. You are trying to acquire it as you are running the firm. Tendering is an interesting aspect. So we are going to look at, before we tender, what are our qualifications and achievements? We include them there. What audit strategy can be best for this client? We also have to highlight it to them. What locations or countries or places, the geographical area covered by the company, are you able to go around it? Simply because I run Zulu and the company or associates, and we're just the 5 of us, or me and my sons, and then we claim that we can audit ZESCO. That one is probably being too ambitious. All right, so we have to look at the deadlines and fee matters. These bring up a lot of issues, especially ethical issues, because when you are auditing we are trying to tender for something that has very tight deadlines, you might find that you are subjected to intimidation, because probably the auditor, the client wants you to finish an assignment very quickly, meaning your work probably is compromised. There's too much to do. Maybe you had understated how you are looking at things, and you have to be very, very cautious of a tender. Those are some of the things you look out for in a tender. In adherence to code of ethics, do we have issues of safeguards, or rather ethics around the organization? Is this a very close organization with us? Okay. And lastly, something that you also need to look out for as you're advising around tendering, but remember, this is just a general answer. Other audit services, other non-audit services that you might want to offer to them, are they open to any other non-audit services? So you can look at that area as well. This is general guidance. The question will request for something very specific, unless it just tells you tendering. But be very careful. At this level, most of the questions relate to a scenario, and so you can't just tender everywhere and just write your name around tendering. Make sure it relates to the scenario in question. Then descriptions of practicing firms. This is guidance around how you're supposed to describe your company, whether the firm is a firm of chartered accountants or not. Okay, guidance as to whether for you to be a firm of chartered accountants, you need to be so many accountants in the organization. This is very, very elementary, and it's just book knowledge. All right, so key considerations in this field. Do we have enough resources and staff? Are these things written down? Are the rules in the organization written down? Okay, in your organization as you are running the practice. I understand some companies don't even have job descriptions, but they will reprimand a person for coming, for not doing their job, and you even wonder what job were they supposed to be doing. Okay, so do they have enough resources? Do you have enough staff? As you are giving the answer. Audit risk. Is this too risky? All right. Is there any reputational risks by auditing this person? It's not all firms that you are, it's not all clients that you're supposed to take up. It's not everything you're supposed to eat. It's not every client you're supposed to take. But resigning or rejecting a client should be the point of last resort. Look for safeguards. Try to find a way of getting into that client. For them to actually exist in a country within those laws, then there's a possibility that you can actually audit them, unless they are doing illegal business and they are not a registered company. And otherwise, as long as they are a registered company, there is a possibility that you can audit them, unless it is too risky. Okay, unless it is too risky. Is fee ethical and practical? Is it more than 15%? Okay, if it's more than 15%, what ethical, what safeguards have you put in place? Experience and qualifications for the industry and the client. Are you experienced? Like we're talking about human resource. Time and deadlines, the pressures and intimidations. I talked about this. Conflicts of interest with potential clients. This we've talked about. Are there any issues around us? Professional clearance. How have the other auditors gone? Okay, and why have they gone? All right. Preconditions in audit practice. Client using correct accounting framework. Are they using the correct accounting framework? What happens if they are not? Why should we even start auditing? Unless what? All right, so if you're not using the correct accounting framework, what do? All right, you resign. All right, we'll look at that. Documented control process over financial statements. Are they giving us access? Actually, this is one of the first things you do as you are having that engagement letter. Are they going to give you access to all the financial, all the information that you require? Do you have unlimited access? As long as there's limited access, the recommendation is pretty harsh. All right. Any ethical and professional issues that are there? All right. And after that, you are home and dry. All right. So thank you. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Phuka Business Academy. We are on Facebook and we're on YouTube. All right. So I hope you enjoyed the session. Please remember, this is usually not an isolated topic, and there are very, very few questions that come that you can just see that this is an issue of practice management, unless probably it's tendering, which can be around 8 marks or 6 marks. You will not find a 30-mark question around this section alone. Everything sits on this one, especially when they are giving guidance to how you can get your answer written. So take note, the next videos that we're going to have, the next sessions that we're going to have, I'll be making reference a lot to issues of the practice management, issues of quality, issues of capacity, especially if, for those in my classes, understand, you give me an answer, I'll ask, but how are you giving that answer when you're a small firm? Okay, no, we'll build Chinese walls. Chinese walls, you use separate teams. How? No, we'll resign. Quickly going to resigning, to me, means laziness, actually. And obviously, when examining, how can you give 8 marks for someone who just says resign? Okay, those are elementary answers, and so we should not have them. You can talk about a HOT review. You can talk about an expert review. You can talk about obviously setting up or maybe seeking legal advice. That is actually a better option than resigning. Seek legal advice, and then when they're given a direction, then you can take it, right? Otherwise, this is running a business. Hopefully, you can look at it that way. Please remember, mask up, mask up. Just that I'm alone around here, I'll have to spray this table. Mask up, mask up. All right. Thank you very much, and have a blessed evening, and have a blessed weekend. Have a blessed day. All right. Thank you, and we will see you on the other.